The species that refused to evolve. The summit of superior beings. The Galactic Assembly met once every stellar cycle in a station that floated between three suns. It was a gathering of the galaxy's most advanced species, a celebration of evolutionary perfection where civilizations showcased their latest achievements. This year, the Zafrani displayed their new telepathic enhancement that allowed thought sharing across entire star systems. The Cortex revealed combat enhancements that made their soldiers nearly indestructible. The Velm presented their genetic purification program that had eliminated all weakness from their population. Every species had something to boast about, some way they had pushed beyond natural limitations to become stronger, faster, more perfect. Every species except one. Ambassador David Chen stood at the presentation platform, representing humanity for the first time in galactic history. He was average height for a human, slightly overweight from too many late-night strategy sessions, and wearing glasses because he preferred them to corrective surgery. His presentation was simple: footage of Earth, statistics about human colonies, and a brief overview of human culture. When he finished, the assembly chamber was silent. Not the respectful silence of impressed observers, but the awkward quiet of beings trying to find something polite to say. Finally, High Coordinator Vexren of the Zafrani spoke, his telepathic voice echoing in everyone's minds. Ambassador Chen, we welcome humanity to the assembly. But we must ask, your species has had faster-than-light travel for 30 years now. Why have you made no effort to improve yourselves? David adjusted his glasses. Improve ourselves how? In any way, Vexren said, gesturing around the chamber. Genetic enhancement, cybernetic upgrades, telepathic development, strength augmentation. Every species here has transcended their natural limitations. Yet humans remain, baseline. Unmodified. Weak. The burden of imperfection. David looked around at the assembled species. The Zafrani with their enlarged craniums housing enhanced brains. The Cortex with their armored exoskeletons grafted directly to their spines. The Velm with their perfectly uniform features, every individual identical to an optimized genetic template. We've discussed it, David said carefully. We have the technology for most of what you've achieved. We've just chosen not to use it widely. Chosen? A Cortex general leaned forward, his mechanical voice harsh. You choose to remain inferior? We choose to remain human, David corrected. There's a difference. Explain, Vexren said, and David could sense genuine curiosity beneath the condescension. David pulled up a new image, a human family. Parents, children, a grandmother in a wheelchair, a teenager with a prosthetic arm. This is the Martinez family from Earth. The father, Jose, has diabetes. The mother, Sarah, has a genetic condition that causes chronic pain. Their daughter Emma lost her arm in an accident. The grandmother has Parkinson's disease. By your standards, they're all defective. Weak. In need of fixing. He paused, letting the image sink in. But Jose is a brilliant engineer who designed the water purification systems for our Mars colony. Sarah is a composer whose music is considered some of humanity's finest art. Emma is a championship athlete who inspired thousands of other disabled youth. The grandmother was a diplomat who negotiated peace between Earth and the outer colonies during our civil conflicts. They could be even better with enhancements, the Velm representative said. Her voice was flat, emotionless, a side effect of their genetic optimization. Why limit them? The hidden strength. Because, David said, we've learned something important about weakness. It teaches things that strength never can. He pulled up more images. Humans struggling, failing, adapting, overcoming. Jose's diabetes taught him patience and discipline. Every day, he has to monitor his condition, adjust his medication, plan his meals. That constant attention to detail made him the meticulous engineer he is. Sarah's chronic pain gave her an understanding of suffering that flows through every note of her music. People who hear it say it speaks to their deepest struggles. Emma's accident taught her that limitation doesn't mean defeat. Her prosthetic arm isn't as good as a natural one, but learning to work with it made her creative in ways other athletes aren't. The assembly listened, but David could sense their skepticism. "We studied your species before coming here," David continued. "The Zafrani eliminated mental illness through genetic modification 300 years ago. You also haven't produced a truly revolutionary scientific theory in 200 years. The Korthax removed all physical weakness from your soldiers. You also haven't had a significant advancement in combat strategy in 5 generations because your warriors stopped needing strategy, they just overpower opponents. The Velm optimized your entire population for efficiency. You also have the lowest birth rate in the galaxy because your people don't see any point in creating children who are just copies of themselves." The silence now was different. Uncomfortable. The question no one asked. "You're suggesting," Vexrin said slowly, "that weakness makes species stronger?" "I'm suggesting," David said, "that weakness makes species creative, adaptive, empathetic. Every human achievement comes from someone dealing with limitation. We invented agriculture because we weren't strong enough to hunt large animals alone. We created writing because our memories were imperfect. We built spacecraft because our planet couldn't sustain infinite growth. Every weakness became a problem to solve, and solving problems is what we do best." He pulled up a final image, Earth's moon, with the plaque left by the first human astronauts. "When we landed on our moon, we left a message: we came in peace for all mankind. Not we came to conquer or we came to prove our superiority. We came because we were curious, fragile creatures who wanted to see what was beyond our reach. And that curiosity, born from our weakness and limitations, carried us to the stars." A Korthax scientist spoke up. "But surely you must see that enhancement would make you more competitive. In the galaxy, the strong survive. The weak are conquered or destroyed." "Maybe," David said. "But we've noticed something interesting. Every species in this assembly is ancient, powerful, and stuck. You've solved the problems you cared about, becoming stronger, smarter, more perfect. Now you just maintain what you have. Meanwhile, humanity has been in space for 30 years, and we're already expanding faster than any of you did in your first century. Why? Because we still have problems to solve. Limitations to overcome. Weaknesses that drive us to keep improving, not our bodies, but our tools, our societies, our understanding." The challenge delivered. The assembly debated for hours after David's presentation. Some species dismissed humanity as foolishly sentimental. Others were intrigued. A few were quietly concerned. 3 months later, that concern proved justified. The Korthax Empire, the galaxy's dominant military power, received a distress call from their border station at Kepler 442. An unknown threat had appeared, a swarm of autonomous drones that were destroying Korthax outposts with unprecedented efficiency. The Korthax military responded as they always did, with overwhelming force. They sent their finest battle fleet, 300 warships crewed by genetically enhanced soldiers in cybernetic armor. They were unstoppable. The drones destroyed them in 4 hours. The footage was horrifying. The drones weren't individually powerful, but they adapted constantly. Every tactic the Korthax used, the drones countered within minutes. When the Korthax deployed their most advanced weapons, the drones reconfigured their shields. When Korthax soldiers attempted boarding actions, the drones changed their hull designs to prevent entry. It was like fighting an enemy that learned and evolved in real time. By the end of the battle, the Korthax fleet was crippled, and the drones had vanished into deep space. The Korthax Empire, which hadn't asked for help in 1,000 years, sent a priority message to the Galactic Assembly: "We don't know how to fight an enemy that adapts faster than we can respond." The request that changed everything. The emergency assembly session was tense. The Korthax had been the galaxy's protectors for centuries. If they couldn't handle this threat, who could? Ambassador Chen listened as species after species proposed solutions. The Zafrani suggested telepathic coordination. The Velm recommended genetic analysis of the drones. The Korix offered their reality-bending technology. Every suggestion was logical, methodical, and based on using existing advantages in new ways. Finally, Chen spoke up. Has anyone considered that maybe this threat wasn't designed to fight strong species? Maybe it was designed to fight species that can't adapt because they've optimized away their ability to change? The assembly turned to him. We're weak, Chen said. We can't match Cortex strength, Zafrani intelligence, or Velm efficiency. But we're really good at one thing, finding new solutions to impossible problems. We've been doing it our entire existence because we've always been too weak to rely on what we had. We had to innovate or die. He paused. Let us look at these drones. Let us study the problem. And let us show you what weakness can accomplish when it refuses to quit. The Cortex High Commander looked at Chen with barely concealed disdain. You want us to trust our survival to the weakest species in the assembly? No, Chen said. I want you to trust it to the only species that's still learning how to survive. The vote was close, but humanity got permission. They had 2 weeks before the drones were projected to reach Cortex core systems. 2 weeks to prove that being weak didn't mean being helpless. As Chen left the assembly chamber, he overheard a Velm representative whisper to a colleague, they'll fail. Weakness never defeats strength. Chen smiled. They still didn't understand. Weakness didn't defeat strength through power. It defeated strength by refusing to fight on strength's terms. And humanity had been doing that since the first human picked up a stick to fight something bigger, faster, and stronger than themselves. The drones were about to learn what that meant, the weakness that saved the galaxy. The team nobody wanted. The research station orbiting Kepler 442 was designed by the Cortex for efficiency and strength. Everything was reinforced metal and sharp angles. The human team that arrived looked completely out of place. Dr. Lisa Park walked with a cane due to a childhood injury that had never fully healed. Engineer Marcus Webb had ADHD that made him fidget constantly, unable to sit still for more than a few minutes. Xenobiologist Sarah Kim was deaf, communicating through sign language interpreted by her AI assistant. Strategist James Rodriguez had severe dyslexia that made reading difficult without specialized software. Pilot Chen Wei had lost an eye in an accident and wore a simple patch rather than getting a cybernetic replacement. The Cortex Station Commander, General Crix, looked at them with barely concealed disgust. This is Earth's best? A team of damaged individuals? Damaged? Lisa Park leaned on her cane and smiled. No, General. Adaptive. Every person on this team has spent their life finding creative solutions because the standard ones didn't work for them. That's exactly what this situation needs. Crix gestured to a view screen showing the drone attack footage. Those things destroyed our best fleet. They adapt faster than any AI we've encountered. They learn from every engagement. How do your disabilities help with that? Marcus Webb, who had been fidgeting with a small puzzle cube, looked up. Because we understand adaptation better than any enhanced species. You were built to be perfect. We were born imperfect and had to figure out how to thrive anyway. That's why we'll beat these drones. The pattern others missed. The team spent 3 days analyzing every second of footage from the Cortex battle. While they worked, Cortex officers watched with increasing frustration. The humans seemed disorganized, chaotic. Lisa Park would study data for hours, then suddenly get up and walk around the station, her cane tapping rhythmically. Marcus Webb jumped between tasks every few minutes, never finishing one before starting another. Sarah Kim spent entire shifts just watching the drone footage without taking any notes. They're wasting time, Crix complained to Ambassador Chen, who had stayed to observe. They're thinking, Chen corrected. You just don't recognize it because it doesn't look like Cortex efficiency. On the 4th day, Lisa Park called a meeting. The entire team gathered around a display showing the drone attack pattern. We found something, Lisa said. The drones aren't using AI the way you think. They're not processing and adapting through computational power. They're using something closer to evolutionary learning. Crix frowned. Explain. Marcus Webb jumped in, talking fast. Okay, so standard military AI works like this: encounter threat, analyze threat, select countermeasure from database, implement countermeasure. Linear. Predictable. But these drones? They're more like a biological system. They encounter a threat, they try multiple responses simultaneously, the successful ones get reinforced, the unsuccessful ones get discarded. It's natural selection happening in real time during combat. Understanding through experience. Sarah Kim's AI assistant translated her signs, which means they're not smarter than standard AI. They're more flexible. And flexibility has limits. Everything biological has constraints, Lisa continued. Maximum adaptation speed, resource limitations, vulnerabilities during transition periods. The drones are incredibly good at adapting to direct threats, but we think they have blind spots. Situations they're not designed to handle because their creators never encountered them. What kind of situations? Crix asked. James Rodriguez pulled up a series of diagrams, his specialized reading software highlighting key points. Paradoxes. Situations where every adaptation creates new problems. Biological systems get stuck in these loops all the time, like predator-prey cycles that spiral out of control, or evolutionary arms races that lead to extinction. The drones are sophisticated, but they're still following evolutionary logic. And evolution has rules we can exploit. How? Crix leaned forward, interested despite himself. Chen Wei spoke up, her voice calm. We don't fight them directly. We create an environment where their adaptation ability becomes a weakness. We make them adapt so much, so fast, that they become unstable. The plan that seemed impossible. The team's proposal shocked everyone. Instead of building weapons to fight the drones, they wanted to build problems the drones couldn't solve. We create a series of ships, Lisa explained, each one presenting a different tactical challenge. The drones will adapt to each one, but every adaptation will make them vulnerable to the next challenge. We'll force them into an evolutionary spiral where each solution creates a new weakness. Marcus added, it's like the Red Queen hypothesis from Earth biology, you have to keep running just to stay in the same place. We're going to make the drones run so fast they exhaust themselves. Crix shook his head. That's not a military strategy. That's a theory. How do you weaponize that? By being weak, Lisa said simply. The first ship will have powerful shields but no weapons. The drones will adapt to break through shields. The second ship will have heavy armor but minimal shields. They'll adapt for armor piercing. The third ship will be fast and lightly defended. They'll adapt for speed. Each adaptation will make them worse at handling the previous challenge. And then? Crix asked. Sarah signed rapidly, and her AI translated, then we throw all the challenges at them simultaneously. Ships with shields, ships with armor, ships with speed, all in chaotic patterns. They won't be able to maintain adaptations for all of them. They'll start failing. And when they fail, we destroy them with conventional weapons. The weakness in the plan. General Crix studied the proposal for a long moment. This requires perfect timing. If the drones don't adapt the way you predict, if they develop a counter-strategy we haven't anticipated, the entire plan fails. Yes, Lisa agreed. And you're confident you can predict how an unknown alien AI will respond? No, Marcus said cheerfully. We'll probably get some parts wrong. But that's actually an advantage. See, Cortex military planning is designed to be perfect, every contingency covered, every variable controlled. That makes you predictable. Our plan has holes because we know we can't predict everything. So we built in flexibility. Places where we can adapt on the fly when our predictions are wrong. James added, it's like how I read. I can't process text the way normal readers do, so I developed strategies to compensate, context clues, pattern recognition, multiple passes through material. I'm slower than normal readers, but I'm better at understanding complex, ambiguous texts because I'm used to working with incomplete information. Chen Wei smiled with her single eye. You're used to seeing one way and having no backup. So you learn to trust what you see and act decisively. That's what this plan requires, decisive action based on incomplete information. The test that couldn't fail. The Cortex authorized the plan, partly because they had no better options and partly because they were curious to see if these weak humans could possibly succeed. The human team built their ships in 6 days. They weren't impressive vessels, cobbled together from salvaged Cortex materials, jury-rigged systems, and improvised solutions. They looked like exactly what they were, desperate measures from a weak species. The drones arrived at Kepler 442 on schedule. There were over 500 of them now, having reproduced from resources harvested during their attacks. They moved with perfect coordination, a swarm of predatory intelligence seeking prey. The first human ship met them, the shield vessel. It didn't attack, just activated its defenses and waited. The drones swarmed it, testing, probing, learning. After 11 minutes, they adapted weapons that could penetrate the shields. They destroyed the ship. The second ship appeared, armored, heavily reinforced. The drones attacked with their new shield-piercing weapons. The weapons were useless against solid armor. The drones adapted again, taking 14 minutes this time to develop armor-piercing capabilities. They destroyed the ship. The third ship, fast, maneuverable, minimal defenses. The drone's armor-piercing weapons were too slow to track it. Adapt again. 18 minutes this time. The swarm was slowing down. The moment of truth. General Crix watched from the command center. They're learning your pattern. By the 5th ship, they'll maintain all adaptations simultaneously. No, Lisa Park said confidently. They can't. Watch their response times. Each adaptation takes longer because they're carrying the weight of previous adaptations. They're becoming specialized in multiple directions at once, and that's creating internal conflicts. Marcus was right. The 4th ship, a combination of shields and speed, confused the drones. They oscillated between their shield-piercing and speed-tracking adaptations, unable to use both effectively. Adaptation time, 31 minutes. The 5th ship, armor and maneuverability, made it worse. The drones began making mistakes, attacking with inappropriate weapons, moving in patterns that contradicted their current configurations. Now, Lisa ordered. All remaining human ships appeared simultaneously, 20 vessels, each with different defense combinations, moving in deliberately chaotic patterns. The drones tried to adapt, tried to respond, but they couldn't process so many contradictory requirements at once. Their swarm coordination broke down. Individual drones began behaving erratically, their evolutionary programming stuck in impossible loops. And then the Cortex fleet arrived. Fresh, coordinated, targeting drones that were no longer adapting, no longer evolving, just flailing in confusion. The battle lasted 17 minutes. Not a single human or Cortex ship was lost. The lesson learned. In the aftermath, as the Cortex fleet secured the system, General Crix approached the human team. They were exhausted, celebrating quietly, looking nothing like victorious warriors. I don't understand, Crix said. Your plan worked, but it should not have. Those drones were superior to anything we could build. Yet you defeated them with inferior ships and improvised tactics. Lisa Park adjusted her cane and smiled. That's because you're thinking about strength wrong, General. You see strength as having more power, more capabilities, more perfection. But real strength isn't about what you have. It's about what you can do when you don't have enough. Marcus Webb nodded enthusiastically. Every person on this team succeeds not despite their limitations, but because of them. I have ADHD, so I learned to see patterns in chaos. Sarah is deaf, so she learned to observe without distraction. James has dyslexia, so he learned to think in nonlinear ways. Chen has one eye, so she learned to make decisions with incomplete visual information. Lisa needs a cane, so she learned patience and careful planning. Sarah Kim signed, and her AI translated, "We didn't defeat the drones by being stronger. We defeated them by understanding what it means to be weak and having to adapt constantly. The drones were designed to be perfect adapters. We're imperfect adapters who've been doing it our whole lives. That made all the difference. The shift that changed everything. Word of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Assembly convened to discuss what it meant. Ambassador David Chen stood before them again, but this time the chamber was silent with respect rather than condescension. You were right, Coordinator Vexren admitted. We judged weakness as inferiority. We eliminated our limitations and called it progress. But we see now what we lost. You didn't lose everything, David said. You still have your strengths, your achievements, your civilizations. But maybe there's a balance. Maybe perfection isn't the goal. Maybe the goal is to be strong enough to survive and weak enough to keep growing. The Cortex High Commander spoke next, his mechanical voice somehow softer than before. We would like to request that human advisors join our military academy. Not to teach tactics or strategy, but to teach something we have forgotten, how to solve problems without overwhelming force. The Zafrani offered to collaborate on scientific research, admitting that their elimination of mental diversity had created blind spots in their thinking. The Velm requested cultural exchanges, hoping to relearn the emotional connections their optimization had deleted. Species after species made similar requests. They weren't abandoning their enhancements, but they were reconsidering what they had sacrificed to achieve them. The future built on weakness. 5 years later, the galaxy looked different. Human advisors worked alongside enhanced species, teaching adaptation and creative problem-solving. Mixed research teams combined the computational power of enhanced minds with human lateral thinking. Military academies studied both Cortex precision and human improvisation. Ambassador Chen stood in the same assembly chamber where he had once been dismissed as weak. Now he was presenting humanity's latest achievement, a collaborative research station where enhanced and baseline beings worked together, each contributing their unique perspectives. We call it the Adaptation Initiative, Chen said. It's based on a simple idea, that strength and weakness aren't opposites. They're partners. Strength gives you the foundation to survive. Weakness gives you the motivation to evolve. Together, they create something neither can achieve alone. He paused, looking around at the assembled species. Humanity doesn't want to become like you. But we don't want you to become like us either. We want to build a galaxy where both approaches exist, where perfect Velm efficiency works alongside human chaos, where Cortex strength combines with human adaptability, where Zafrani intelligence partners with human creativity. The assembly voted unanimously to support the initiative. As Chen left the chamber, a young Cortex officer approached him. Her cybernetic enhancements were obvious, but she moved with a hesitation that was distinctly un-Cortex. Ambassador, she said. I've been studying human philosophy. I read about something called the strength of vulnerability. I'm beginning to understand it. Chen smiled. What changed your mind? I realized, she said quietly, that my enhancements make me powerful, but they also make me rigid. I can't change what I am. But humans like you, with your limitations and imperfections, you can become anything you need to be. That's not weakness. That's the most powerful strength in the universe. Chen adjusted his glasses, he still refused corrective surgery, and looked at this enhanced soldier who was learning to embrace vulnerability. Welcome to humanity, he said. We're glad you're starting to understand what weakness really means. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Power alone wasn't enough. Perfection alone wasn't enough. Sometimes, the greatest strength came from accepting your weaknesses and learning to thrive because of them, not despite them. And humanity, the weakest species in the assembly, had taught that lesson to beings who had forgotten what it meant to struggle, to fail, and to keep trying anyway.